came in with a sweatshirt on earlier, and now you've got.
I'm gonna do that so you can see where we're at. Okay, I'm just gonna take out my pen. Yeah, I just got my pen. That's all. That's all I heard. They're gonna move.
Montana, where my wife was born, they had to stay outside.
Oh, you. That didn't last. That didn't last for you. That didn't last. No. Huh. Well, I can only aspire to be in that. Yeah, I know. Well, I can. He's only got one. Let's see where he's at after three. So. You're gonna have to jump. Yeah.
I don't know who has it, who hasn't.
See, I don't think we ever got a copy to sign. We always had it part of the packet.
It was part of the package.
Yeah, so we would have had to actually tear it out of the package to do that. Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I didn't report
Oh, yeah.
I just need you to sign these two before.
Wonderful. That's great. Sure. We still need Matt Gallagher, I think.
I don't have his.
I can get it.
Okay, thank you.
Good deal.
Guess we're making an announcement.
It was quiet, but that's not still.
It's okay that we're down here, but you can't talk unless you got a microphone.
We can do that.
So,
Barely fit everybody in.
yeah.
Thank you. See, what do we got here? We have 7?
Got five.
Sorry.
You're waiting for 7.
Yeah. And 5. Had 7.
Well, I heard, I heard that the sheets of the big pickup drop off.
Which is great.
Yeah. Oh, I hit reply up there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just like
Good. Yes.
You had me worried. I was like,
Police station.
Yes, we did.
Oh, that's right.
2 things, I think. 2? Do you have 2? Give me a second, I'll think about that. Okay. Are we streaming live yet? We're good? Test 1, 2. There we go. Wow. Right, okay. Yeah. We're there. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We can do a roll call, please.
Present?
Here. Great. Tonight we're going to be working off a couple mics, so it's going to be real important so that way everybody can hear if before you speak that you have a mic. So we'll keep that in mind. I think that we, not let's have an objection, we want to switch things around here. We messed this up not last time by having our department reports first. That way, if I remember correctly, if there's any objection to that, council only. No, no. Oh, just set it indoor. Yeah, there's a couple things.
Permanently, but that would be
That would be if you actually wanted to change it in the course of the context of your regular council meetings. I think for your work session, you're fine because basically your work session agenda is essentially just the draft agenda to the council. So it doesn't matter which order you take that order of business in. But for the most part, if you were wanting to set your regular council meetings to include department reports and those kind of things, and you wanted to move those up, then you would have to actually take a course of motion.
And I think there was a couple other items. I think Steve, our vice mayor, mentioned this earlier. In the there was a couple things that had been changed in the procedures that we wanted to maybe readdress or relook at. Yeah. No, that's okay. There were certain things that actually, right. But when we look at those procedures, maybe we can look at those and just tweak the other ones as well. Great, okay. So we're going to go right to our department reports. So in our packet, for our first one is page 59, which would be our building officials report. There's no further questions or comments about that. Well, yes. I don't think that one's out. No.
Is this working?
Real low.
Is there volume?
Just curious about, on page 59, the status of the insurance reimbursement on that. My understanding is that we were going to go try a claim on the vehicle that struck the building. Is there any information on that?
Councilman Pasnell, I don't have any information on that at this time, but I will look into that prior to the next regular meeting.
Okay, if no other further comments about the building officials, we're going to move on to the town engineers report.
Kind of follow up on where we left it last month. I had submitted a response to the contractor on their request for time extension. They had sent an email back saying that they didn't necessarily like my response. I informed them there was an appeal process that they have to follow per the contract. And since sending that email, we have received no appeal. So that's kind of on hold. Nothing official has changed in terms of the contract end date as of this point. The work on Ms. Leonard's driveway has finished. I expect a second request for contract time extension because that was out of scope work for something that was not their fault. Made it clear to them as well that that would be a second claim, that it's not a combined claim. Haven't received that either. They did go ahead and grade the swale between the food pantry and the inlet to the Haymarket Baptist Church. Genesis is waiting for the water that's in between the food pantry and the old police station to recede before they replace the pipe and clear out that swale. But if you go and look, you can actually see there's now a ditch.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah, so they do good work when I get them to do it. Yes.
I don't think that one's actually working. Do we have a mic adjustment for this one? Like a volume adjustment?
If you speak real close,
Oh, it's got to be real close.
real close.
Like in your mouth.
The question I have about that swale or the water that's there right now is that it's pretty high, and with the winter the way it is, it could be quite a long time before that clears. So they're going to wait until that clears, or can't they just dig it out and let it drain as they've dug it and then put the pipe in?
I think Brian has been coordinating those efforts a little bit more with them than I have, but with Genesis, that is, not with the contractor. And I don't know if he has more information he can share regarding that. In theory, yeah, they could dig out the pipe and let it go through. And
Yeah, I think we're going to find that pipe's not crushed. It's just been packed and, to think.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But I just would rather not wait 2 months for it to, because it's just going to freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw, and it's going to stay there for a while.
And we can work with Genesis, see if they, when they want to step, because because that was the whole point, is not to have them do something before we had the outfall, because it really wouldn't help. And now that it's there, I agree, it could be a long time before that water goes away. So we will work with, Brian and I will work with them. The remaining items to be done. Oh, I'm sorry.
Joe had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
We're good, rather than you grabbing the mic and saying
Okay. The remaining items include finishing the brick sidewalk. They ran out of brick, and they finally got it delivered. So finishing off the brick sidewalk, finish installing the conduit for the street lights and bringing them online. They do have to put up signing along the project that has not been done, like street signs, speed limit signs, and punch-out items. At the time I wrote this report, I didn't expect a lot of work to be done, but they actually are working right now on the streetlight situation and everything, so I'm glad to see that. I think that the final coordination in terms of the outstanding, the contract end date and stuff like that is going to be coming up in January. We are so close. You can see if you drive it. We are so close. We are almost there. And so I think that next month we'll have a lot more information for you. In terms of the I-66 Route 15 interchange, I did not put the agenda items in here for a motion of support. You had mentioned that you wanted to see the results from the citizens information meeting. I did reach out to VDOT because I was initially told it should only take about 2 weeks. They are still not online, and I put in quotes they told me in terms of they hope the package will be posted on their webpage by the end of the year. As soon as those responses are posted, I will email them to you. But there's nothing I can do until they post those responses. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as the streetscape project, the cleanup, I mean, that's all part of the punch list, right?
Yes.
They'll
Yes.
pick up all the debris, they'll sweep,
The street?
the sidewalks.
Yes.
As well, but-
That'd be part of the final punch-out cleanup items, yes. And restoring the Harover property as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Which brings me up to a couple of concerns. The Harover property, looks like they've used the turnaround on that new seated and strawed area, so it's like maybe we can get with the food pantry they can, say, tape that off or something to prevent the late night turnarounds in that area.
So other people have continued to use the turnaround area?
Well,
you believe?
before the turnaround, where they
Okay.
seated and strawed is where they've turned around vehicles. Tracks, yeah.
Okay. So what it might do is that when I have them seed, because they'll have to do additional seeding and stuff like that as well, maybe just ask them to put up some type of barricade or something so people don't drive on it. That's what you're talking about,
Yeah,
correct?
correct. Okay. All right. Any other comments for Holly? All right,
And
great.
I hope all of you have a happy holidays
Yep.
as well.
Thank you very much. Our next is our town planner, Sean.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ooh, too close is too close. Just quickly summarizing, the ARB approved or renewed a certificate of appropriateness for Winterham Building Number 2. This is the sister building to the one that's out there today, and it fronts Fayette Street. The entire site is a unified site plan, and there's actually a third building that goes behind the Winterham house. The new owners have not indicated a desire to move forward with that building, but they do intend to move forward with the construction, again, of the building on the corner of Fayette and Washington sometime this spring. I believe they recently submitted their construction plans to do that. That's first floor retail, second, third floor residential. So hopefully that'll spark some more interest in the rest of the property. The ARB also approved a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of the sheets. This also included a signed development plan. They wanted, with that, it's part of a zoning text amendment. We did let them know that we have a consultant right now that's looking at the signed ordinance, but in the interest of time, they wanted to move forward with that text amendment, which will revise some of our current sign standards to accommodate a gas station canopy, gas station pumps, other lighting on the building. It is an attractive building. I think they did a good job of interacting with the ARB, and I think it was a good outcome, and we expect to hear from them hopefully soon on getting their site plan back in, getting their special use permit moving forward, and hopefully start construction later next year or after tomorrow this year. I've updated the list of kind of the ongoing projects. A lot of them have been somewhat quiet, although we're starting to see a lot of renewed interest. The industrial park, you may have known this, was Signature Companies doing their addition on the backside. They enclosed an old loading bay. We're finishing up that. The owner had gone through an appeal process with the Board of Zoning Appeals regarding requirements for a site plan. Robinson's Paradise, this was north of 66. We did get some interim materials from them in response, but sorry I'm long-winded today off the top of my head. Holly and I need to do some follow-up. They're missing some information. We need to move forward. The other ones of note, Chick-fil-A, I need to probably go ahead and take this off the list as I've already updated you. They're in somewhat of a holding pattern while they figure out a traffic solution, if they figure out a traffic solution for that site. The ice rink has resubmitted, and they're looking forward to move forward in the spring. Haymarket Village, this is the site across the street. We're finishing up our first review. The fairgrounds at Haymarket, this was the rezoning that I've described to you. There's been a lot of ongoing discussions about how to put together the traffic impact analysis, so that has somewhat held up our review. They're also wanting to change up some of their development program already, so we're going to meet with them probably mid-January to kind of reconnect and see what they want to do with that property. Not heard much from John Marshall Commons. This was the rezoning on the east side of town, the townhomes and the townhomes that were really multifamily. They had a meeting with the district supervisor, and they were asked to go back to the drawing board, reduce some of their numbers, rethink some of their frontage improvements to make sure that they tie into our street program. I believe we've gotten some correspondence from the Midwood property. This is where we've heard talk of the data centers, and there was an active adult application that was in. I think there's an interest, or maybe we had talked that they might be revising that project. I've gotten some calls from the project manager about data center design based on some of my experience that I've had up in Loudon. So they are moving forward. We just haven't seen anything from them yet. So, yeah, go ahead.
The county had sent me an email saying that they expected a submission in January, and to say that they will send it to us. This is the Midwood project.
Correct. And just to go back to the fairgrounds rezoning, we have had a good relationship with the county. They've agreed to take on some of the review, ferrying it through the process to have schools take a look. They're going to have their transportation folks take a look as well, since we're heavily dependent on the county's road network. So it's a positive that we're playing well with others at the county level. I worked with Jennifer to deal with some temporary signs related to the bridge closure. You may see in the next week or so, just off the town center sign is out on the corner. It's a green, orange, and white sign. It's about 10 feet high. This could be by about 4 feet wide, and it basically lists all those businesses. It's up?
Yep. Went up today.
Well, that's what happens when you drive late from this direction. So, anyway, it's up. Yeah, exactly. Didn't even know it was there. Right now, our focus has been on those businesses that don't have frontage on Washington Street. We're going to follow up with the Red House Ordinary. Most of their signage is already on Washington Street, so I think the need is not as great for those that are north of that. So, I believe that's it, Mr. Mayor. Be happy to answer any questions.
Just the follow-up to the Red Horse Ordinary, it looks like some of those tenants are still expecting a sign on the building, so probably the sooner the better that we at least communicate with them that
Correct.
a sign's not coming.
Well, first we need Mr. Harvey to get his signs down from Haymarket Day.
Oh.
And then he has on the two facades. And then I did leave a polite message with him. I guess he's away for the holiday. But we'll work with them. Again, the greater demand seemed to be for those that lost all their frontage signage. So I will follow up with them. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Yeah.
On the planner's report, were you going to address the issue with the zoning text amendment separately, Marshawn?
I'm unsure of the format. Are we going back through the agenda items, or?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Yes, sir. I will address that as part of my agenda item. Thank you.
You want to wait for that, or you want to?
Well, I was actually going to make a suggestion.
Sure, make a suggestion.
I was looking at this and, good golly, and I was like thinking actually to streamline the work session, since it's a work session nature, you could have each staff member who has an agenda item just address their agenda items while they go through. That way you're covering it all at one time, and once they're done, they're done. So I don't know if you want to do that. I mean, it does mean council would have to stay on task about, what are we talking about at this particular time, but it's one of those things like for Marshawn's time, that way he could go through it.
Can I ask my questions related to the stuff prior to the agenda item? Of course. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. So, relative to the John Marshall comments,
Yes, sir.
when we spoke the last time, Marshall, I think we had the presentation, and we were thinking about putting together our comments. So are they still relevant, and is that something we should still be doing to get to Pete Canlon? Or is it something you think we can wait on? What's your opinion?
I spoke directly with the developer or the contract purchaser, Roy Barnett of Van Meter Homes, and he had asked that we would hold off on our comments until the application's revised and resubmitted.
And then we'll go through the review process again, I guess.
Correct. As we mentioned earlier, the 1 mile review process, we'll get that package, take a look. If there are dramatic changes, I'll go ahead and bring it to you, revise the kind of summary comments that we had mentioned before, and then send them back out.
Are we going to have to go through Planning Commission again to review that, or?
I don't believe we need to go to that extent.
Okay.
But certainly take a look. If it's changed too dramatically, then we'll go back through. If not, we'll just bring it to you, kind of say this is what we're doing, get a head nod from you guys, and then we'll move on. Now remember, this is just the staff review. It hasn't gone to Planning Commission, hearing at the board level or the county level or the board level.
Right.
Once it does, we will all come back to you and ask for a more formal position by the council, either in support or non-support, or just generally outlining your issues when it comes up.
Okay. And my second question relates to the Chick-fil-A issue with traffic.
Okay.
And understanding that the fairgrounds is a little bit further east, but aren't they going to be, hit with the same type of a problem relative to the traffic issue? And also, two-part question. That's question one. And then is there a way that the two properties might be able to work together somehow in their design to kind of help alleviate the problem there or come up with a solution? Just a thought.
So on the traffic, part of what we've been working out with the applicant is a traffic impact analysis. And that will let us know, much like we did at the Chick-fil-A, what are the volumes, what's the effect of the interchange and closing median in front of the first entrance by CVS. And there will be recommendations out of that traffic analysis as what's to do or what it can and can't support. In terms of interparcel access, I think I mentioned before, there's actually the Corals project has 2 interparcel access driveways that are expected to serve to the east into the fairgrounds property. Certainly can be a part of the discussion. One of the things Fairgrounds wants to do is to add a drive-through facility as part of their project. So we would have to look at having both a Chick-fil-A and some other sort of self-service facility in close proximity and what that would mean. With interparcel access, you'd get some trip reductions, but those retailers may not be happy with all the Chick-fil-A traffic moving across the front of their business and then choking up the entrance there. But I think ultimately, no matter who goes on the Coral site, we're going to want to encourage them to provide access next door. So as we review the rezoning, we'll continue to make comments to that effect. So, sure.
So relative to the planning effort here, now we don't know what Chick-fil-A inevitably is going to do, but does the Corals property, do they have to have the Chick-fil-A project in there when they do their analysis or not?
In the rezoning?
I'm talking about the transportation analysis. In other words, it could have an impact on their property or vice versa. Chick-fil-A, would they have to consider a future zoning or a future project, so to speak, when they do their analysis?
Yeah, so the rezoning does assign a series of background trips or traffic. Unfortunately, they did not include Midwood because it's not approved. I believe they're going to make some mention of Chick-fil-A, but again, it's not entitled yet or hasn't been approved yet. That's not answering your question, though. So there's a certain amount of trips that were already approved for Corals, and that's somewhat vested given what they've done. So the pad sites, there's retail pad sites, so they could theoretically show it tomorrow and build without anything more than just following their building permit and construction plans. But
I guess my concern, and I see Holly wants to answer the question, but I guess my concern is, if we need to understand what the traffic impacts are going to be if both are there, and are they assessing it for that or not? And, usually you have the baseline or no build or whatever, and then you have the different analyses you do depending on the project itself. So wouldn't it make sense then, perhaps, if they're going to do the Corals property, that they include Chick-fil-A, with and without? And that's essentially what I'm concerned about, is the impact of both.
correct. So there's already a certain amount of trips that are generated by what Corals does already. And again, Chick-fil-A not being entitled, yes, it's probably good planning to go ahead and anticipate it. What we may be able to do is what are the trips that are already looked at, what are already generated by the buy right plan for Corals, and what is the delta? In other words, if there's already 15,000 trips coming out of Corals per day, how much more does the Chick-fil-A generate? It takes some of that traffic and adds more. But yes, we can talk about it as part of the analysis. The scoping document for the fairgrounds did make mention of the proposed Chick-fil-A next door, and we will look at that too. It's always one of those things where you have to be sensitive to. It's not been through the legislative process yet.
And Rashawn, it's not only the Chick-fil-A, it's the other pads that could be built on as well in the rear, correct?
Correct. So the back already has. So your hand going up. We work together. We think alike. Osmosis coming to me. Yes, sir. There's already square footage that's already approved for that site today that could come in with not much more fuss or fanfare. The VDOT project did assume a certain amount of trips coming out of that site based on what it was approved for, which I believe is about another 15,000 square feet of service retail. So it'd just be a matter of capturing the difference. I think with Chick-fil-A, it's just how the trips behave, the volume, the peaks during the day, where they want to go. That behaves somewhat differently than what the retail that's already out there today. Long bureaucratic answer, I'm sorry. But yes, we're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Long story short.
Holly, you had a comment?
Just so you know, when Corals first came in, they did a traffic impact analysis. So what happened is that when Chick-fil-A came in, they were revising it. They never got approval. They never got the final approvals on that revised TIA. Fairgrounds came in after the Chick-fil-A process had started, so I had sent them the unapproved traffic impact analysis that had started processing through VDOT. And as Marchant mentioned, they also mention it in their scoping report as a development coming in, because I don't know, right now there is a stub out that goes to the fairgrounds property from the Corals, and the fairgrounds property would also hook up to that as like an internal service road. So, yes, they are kind of looking at each other. Well, Chick-fil-A is not looking at fairgrounds, but fairgrounds is looking at Chick-fil-A.
Now, it's just timely that Holly and I were talking about this morning, and what effect would it be worth approaching the Chick-fil-A folks and really at this point kind of stirring the pot. The VDOT solution is going to have to solve itself. The last time we talked with the Chick-fil-A engineer, there was some mention of maybe reorienting the restaurant in the site to redirect how traffic behaves there, but I think that would require a new contract and some other things that need to happen. So the engineer that we're working with, just said, hey, as things come in, please let us know. If something turns up, we'll come back to you. So,
okay.
I'm looking. I don't want to drive to Gainesville anymore, so I'd like to have a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The agenda item, your zoning text. Page 57.
Okay. This has come back to you several times. As I think I've mentioned during several occasions, is that right now you were defined, the council is defined as the zoning administrator, and so you would send an item to the commission to start looking at that. What the discussion of the planning commission was that it's a much larger issue than simply refining the definition of what a zoning administrator is. The terms administrator and town council are interchanged quite frequently throughout the ordinance, so they asked that we go back and scrub the whole ordinance. They also had some concerns about how the town manager's role is incorporated into that definition. Bottom line is they asked for additional time. So they came back and said, hey, can we have some additional time? Martin had reviewed my item and noticed that we did not account for the fact that we need to make mention of the fact that they're looking through other elements. There may be more than just the definition that comes back to you in the form of a text amendment. So there's a quick revision I need to do that makes reference to look at the definition and any other ordinance changes that may be affected by that definition, and I'll have that revised for your packet for next week.
Okay.
Did I say that correctly, Mark? Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any questions regarding that item? All right. We'll move on to our police department report. Chief Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything specific to mention. The organizational assessment that I was asked to complete is part of the package, and hopeful that you've had a chance to review that, and I'd be happy to take any questions related to that.
Ready? Okay. Sure.
Hey, Chief. Merry Christmas. Hey, I thought this was a really good report. I want to read it a couple more times, but I think this is probably the best report that I've ever seen relative to an assessment of something I know very little about. I think it was very, very informative. I appreciate your efforts on this. It's a really good start. It almost looks like a SWOT analysis to me. You know, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. I'm going to have a lot of questions, so I think maybe the better thing to do, maybe sit down, perhaps, and talk a little bit about it. But I think it gets us to a starting point, and it really gives us an idea. I was curious. I really appreciated also in the report that you laid out the differences, because I always wondered about that, you know, between what the county basically does and what the town does. And it really starts to, I think, kind of lay out the value of the police department to folks that really don't understand it. So I'm gonna just kind of defer for a little bit, because I don't want to take up all night talking about it. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. And does anyone else have any comments, questions for the chief? Great. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Our next item is our treasurer's report. Yep. Might need a mic.
Good evening. Pretty much starting with the first paragraph, we're almost halfway through, well, we are halfway through the budget year now. So I just laid out a few things that line items. I'm sorry, I don't have a packet. Thanks. Just a few things, particular line items that are over in a few areas, but the overall categories in the budget are fine. In the town admin, public safety, public works, museum, etc. Talking about some revenue items. Revenue is looking pretty on key. That we do have a few things like cigarette tax that may come in a little lower because of the things that I listed. But there are other things that come in higher, so more than expected as well. I gave a little breakdown on the streetscape project, which is, as Holly said, we're coming to an end, hopefully in January. But I would, if you want to see more, accurate, exact numbers, please let me know, and I'll be happy to send that to you. But it looks like out of pocket, we're going to come a lot less than we originally thought we were going to have to pay out of pocket. You're going to see later in the packet budget amendment request. Okay. Unless there are any other questions, I can go into that right now.
Last week or the week before, you had a number, 42% revenues versus.
Well, it's a little different this month. If you want to go to page 80, and your packet shows the revenue at 49.4%. And then page, let's see. Yeah, page 87, 51.9% on the expenses. sorry, I can't
Any-
find.
Any other questions for Sherry, or do you want to?
Yeah, page 56. The budget amendments. There's a few line items that we just need to move some money around in the category. We're not moving it out of the category into another one. It's simply the money that we don't need. For example, down in town, admin accounting services. That money was there for the previous treasurer's position. So that money is now needed up in town admin salary and wages to fund the new admin assistant position.
Okay.
Did you have a question? Okay. Again, taking money from Hanover Master Plan, moving $30,000 to Community Development Consulting. This is to cover the sign study and the on-call planning services. And then down in the police department, we are taking $5,000 from vehicle supplies and vehicle fuel and moving that to their salaries and wages for a part-time to cover for officers who are currently out on light duty.
Okay.
And that's it for the amendments.
Any other questions for Sherry? Thank you. Brings us up to our museum report. Hi, Ms. Denise.
Good evening. Just a couple of updates for you. The replacement on the museum roof began today, and it should be done. It's a 2-day job. It should be complete by tomorrow evening, bearing no bad weather or anything like that. But half of the roof is done right now. The left half is done, and they'll complete the right half tomorrow. Also, the events committee met last Monday, December 22nd, and the following events have been scheduled for the 2015 calendar year, starting with Earth Day on April 11th, a health and fitness fair June 27th, Haymarket Day September 19th, and our holiday party on December 5th.
Just to clarify, the health and fitness, this is where we carried over from like last year of trying to squeeze it in?
I have reached out to Carrie Ann again to see if this is something they can assist us with.
Okay, great.
Because, yeah, we kind of worked on that last year. So.
All right. And any questions for Denise? Yeah, I was just going to say, if,
Are those on the website?
Not yet, probably.
They are not posted on the website as of yet, no.
So where can I get a copy of for these events, the list of these events? Is it there?
They are in your weekly review. I did post them in that weekly review to you all. We'll be advertising them soon. They are also, they should be. Did you post them in the report as well?
I didn't post them in the report because the report was done before we had our meeting.
We'll have them in the regular.
Or just email it. It should be fine if you just email it.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. It was right around, yeah. 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 Okay. Any other questions for Denise? All right, moving on. Thank you very much. Our town manager's report. Yep.
Well, speaking of talking too much, pull up your bootstraps. I just wanted to let me first address one issue. We do have scheduled a joint session with both the Planning Commission and the ARB scheduled for January the 22nd at 7 p.m. We'll be getting word out to both of those boards right after the new year. One of the things that has been presented to me, which I thought was not a bad idea, is inviting our friend Mike Chandler back to help us facilitate that meeting. This could easily be covered through the cost of education through either the ARB or the Planning Commission, so I'm not really too worried about the added cost. But for the most part, I wanted to make sure I had council's approval to move forward with that. I think it would be advantageous for us to have him here. He helped you all craft the strategic action plan. Well, he guided you all to crafting it yourselves, but basically he understands it. He also has worked with a lot of these boards very similarly, and I think he knows a little of the dynamics, and I think it would be worthwhile to make sure we're actually making that a very fruitful meeting. That meeting will probably be scheduled to take place within a 90-minute to no more than a 2-hour time limit.
Yeah, we had your concern too. No, that's a good estimate to, or a good.
Right.
So,
I think that's a great idea, to have somebody essentially independent there, who basically understands government as well in the whole process. So kudos, Brian, for that idea. Yeah, no, whatever. But I think it's important that I don't know if you want to go 90 minutes to 2 hours. I think it should be a pretty brisk and crisp meeting. We have asked the ARB and the Planning Commission folks for comments relative to the Code of Ethics and the Standards of Conduct. But I thought that this was mostly a strategic plan rollout, and we're basically set on a strategic plan. So I'm not sure if we're looking for a lot of input on that, other than we want their support. But relative to the others, the documents, yeah, we'll take some input, but we're basically, this is what we've approved and signed. So in my opinion, the sum and substance of that material should not change. We can tweak it. So I'm not really sure if I think we need to really think about how long that meeting is, what the agenda is, and how that gets presented. So just my thoughts.
If I can also add, Joe, I think you're dead on with the agenda. The agenda is not about the strategic planning. We're not asking anyone to change our personal views on what the strategic planning for the next 2 years should be. That's already in motion, and we're going ahead with that. It is really the codes. Just having each of the boards on, with us, joining us as the governing body to say, hey, this is the direction that we're heading in, which I think, town manager, I think it's a great idea having Mike Chandler in to host that section of it. But I think it's important for us to have an itemized agenda. What exactly are we coming to discuss for that evening?
Well, that's what I want. That's what I was wanting to comment. First of all, Mike and I had talked today on the phone, and so a lot of that is where we're both at. The strategic action plan is your own strategic action plan, but the idea is for that to be successful, you're going to need these other boards to jump on board. And so really what you're using is you're utilizing that time to basically explain the strategic action plan. How does each committee enroll? How do they have a role in making this happen? How should this be up at the front? How do we start the process of doing education opportunities for them? Mike can do that. He can cover little tidbits, enough just to say, well, there's the Certified Planning Commissioners course. We'd love to get you all involved in that. That's what Mike's role can really kind of bring, keeping us focused, keeping us moving forward on the process. The other issue is, I think it's also important, whereas you need to listen to, I think it's important for you all to listen to comments with regard to the Code of Ethics. Yeah, there's some portions. I mean, we didn't craft this and try to just, let's face it, we took what other jurisdictions have used, and we tried to combine it into some. There's some issues in there that maybe you have policy mixed in with the ethics side of things, or vice versa. I think it's worthwhile for you all to listen to your boards to see if there's any suggested changes. that's something you can work with. But at the same time, we can't spend an hour on trying to determine that. I think that's where a facilitator, an outside facilitator, will be able to help you all. I think the goal is really to bring it in here so that it doesn't get into a somewhat of a match. This is a new venture for you all. You're still learning what it means to be kind of dictating that you're going to follow this plan and you're going to follow these what you're trying to accomplish. And the bottom line is you need these other two boards to be on board with you, so that we're not necessarily inadvertently, and I think that's a big key word, inadvertently going against each other.
I think it's a great advantage for us to get their feedback. Is it possible to get the individual feedback before the meeting? If it could be emailed to us, because here's what I'm hoping does not happen. This whole aspect of piggybacking on an idea, right? Who's in the ARB? Okay, so Ms. Swinford said, no, let's not pick on Pam. She's not here. But, just having someone say something about the code of ethics and then another person jumping on it and then throwing the whole, the idea of the meeting is to grow from it, is to get the worthwhile comments, is to see how we can improve on what it is that we've done. But so is it possible individually to request of them, because I heard it from the Planning Commission when they met and they went over the code of ethics. You had Mr. Maddox. He said, as it is right now, I could sign it, and it may take a few tweaks. So I would want to hear from Mr. Maddox. Okay, what are the tweaks that he would suggest? I would want to hear from Mr. Ring. Hey, what are the ones from Mr. Weir? What are the issues that they would have with it? And that would help us in knowing, okay, these are issues, and I don't have a problem tweaking them. I just don't want it to become, just as you said, this back and forth and really turning into a wasting of time. So if we can get it, it would be advantageous to us. But I think it would be good hearing their comments.
Yeah, Chris, you're absolutely right. I was at the ARB meeting. I won't speak for the PC discussion a lot. I'll let Matt talk to that if he wants to. But as far as the ARB, David and I showed up and listened in, and I was asked by the chair to answer a few questions. And I basically asked them, I said, we'd appreciate it if you could send your comments in advance relative to the Code of Ethics and the Standard of Conduct. This way we have time to kind of put something together that you can also take a look at, and we can have a very productive meeting on the 22nd rather than try to craft something. And that's not the intent of the meeting. And I tried to be clear that it wasn't the intent of the meeting to sit down and redraft or edit any documents. The idea is on the 22nd we move forward. So, and to your point, perhaps the liaisons can reach back to their respective groups and ask them for some comments, as soon as possible. So, I agree.
Matt, I'm not sure if you wanted to speak about that at all. Green light's on. Red. Green's good. There you go.
All right. I would say the Planning Commission as a whole is probably not on board with this. I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. I think the Planning Commission has their own views of doing business that differs drastically from the council's direction of doing business. I heard comments, excuse me, like, is this legal? We need to check with our town's attorney whether this document's legal. Why sign it? It's not going to change how we do things. So, yeah, I think getting individual people's comments ahead of time, where it's on a sheet of paper, rather than it become 2 or 3 people enabling each other to kind of take shots at it, I guess is the best way to say it. The Planning Commission, I think really they need to understand why we're doing what we're doing. Not necessarily asking their permission why we're doing what we're doing, but just here's the direction we're going. There's a lot of angst that they think that the council is shirking their responsibility by putting it off on the town manager. So really, I think it's a philosophical difference of letting the professionals be professionals and letting the town's elected people come in and kind of set the vision, and then empowering the people to have the wherewithal to carry out that vision. To me, that's what I hear being on the council or the planning commission. So I would take a more this is what we're doing approach, not that we don't want to hear your comments, but I could see if we open up the comments, you could multiply times 3 how long we're going to be here.
Yep. Absolutely. Right. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Marshall?
I think as your planner and zoning administrator, I think the conversation's particularly meaningful given the fact that probably over the next 14 to 18 months, you're going to probably see the largest amount of development review that the town has probably ever seen. And you can look on my chart, most of those projects that are coming in are going to be on the commission's docket, the ARB's docket, and your docket. And we've struggled over time to improve the perception of Haymarket. And folks that have felt that individuals were opportunistic on each one of those boards to move forward a particular agenda or do something else. So I think this on the front end of that will send a positive message to the development community that as these come through, they will look at them impartial. To use an old military term, they'll stay in their lane. And it will be equitable and predictable, and we'll get through the end of it. So I think it's a good way to tee it up. It may suggest you may want to say that as part of the justification. You know, we're having this this increased development activity, and if it's successful and we get through the process, it's a pleasant experience for all. I think that will certainly echo throughout the community that Haymarket is turned the curve and will be more welcoming of development. So it's my 2 cents. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Brian.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Well, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to take the opportunity. I'm going to try to do this as briefly as I can. I know I too tend to get a little bit long-winded, but I think this is important for you all to kind of be refocused on, and really kind of saying it really for not just you all, but it's also for the general listening public as well. As I realize that there's been a lot of concerns raised recently by citizens about council deferring some of their perceived responsibilities over to the manager's position. I wanted to take the opportunity to basically present this to council and, like I said, the general listening public, what exactly we're in the process of transitioning to. Currently within your all's charter, we operate under what's deemed as called the mayor-council form of government. We are beginning the process of transitioning into more of the council-manager form of government. And so I just wanted to take the time to actually kind of define what that is. The mayor-council, or also known as the strong mayor system, is an older and more traditional form of government, and it consists of elected officials and a mayor serving as the chief executive. The mayor-council form of government most closely emulates the federal and state government systems with their elected chiefs, chief executives, and legislatures. As with the council-manager form of government, the mayor-council form of government can exist as a hybrid system. In some mayor-council cities, a professional administrator similar to a city manager is hired to assist with the city operation. However, these positions lack the autonomy and responsibility granted to the chief administrative officers in council-manager form of government. Council-manager form of government combines a strong political leadership of elected officials with the strong managerial experience of an appointed manager or administrator. I feel like I might be preaching to the choir, but just bear with me. All the power and authority are set policies still, and it's very important to note, are done by the elected governing body, which includes the mayor and the members of the council. The governing body, in turn, hires a nonpartisan manager who has a very broad authority to run the organization. Council manager form of government was born out of the U.S. progressive reform movement at the turn of the 20th century. The council manager system was system was originally designed to combat corruption and unethical activity in local governments by promoting effective management within a transparent, responsive, and accountable structure. So how does this work? Well, elected council represents their community and develops a long-range vision for its future. This can be accomplished, I think, in two ways. One, through the adopted comprehensive plan, the other through the elected body creating a strategic action plan during their terms. The comp plan is required by state code. The other is an optional but worthwhile exercise in which an elected body is aiming at accomplishing, basically defining what they're attempting to accomplish during their terms. To ensure these policies are carried out and that the entire community is equitably, I can never say that word, yes, served, you knew what I meant. They're served equally, let's put it that way. The governing body appoints a professional manager. In essence, the council establishes the what, as in what do they want to accomplish, what are their goals, what services do they want to provide, and can we provide them. The manager's role is to figure out the how. How do we accomplish what the council wants to accomplish? How do we accomplish what the council's goals are? How can we provide these services? The manager, in turn, works with the staff to accomplish the action as to how to accomplish these policies set forth by the council. In a town the size of ours, that also means the manager is also very much responsible for the action part of it. The council maintains their role as the community's legislative and policy-making body. Power is centralized in the elected council, which, for example, approves the budget, determines the tax rate. The council also focuses on the community's goals, major projects such as long-term considerations for community growth, land use development, capital improvements, and financing and strategic planning. The council hires a manager to implement the administrative responsibilities related to these goals and supervises the manager's performance. In order to carry out these functions and manage the day-to-day operations, even of our town here, Haymarket, town manager, which is a lot of what you are doing, needs to be bestowed with a certain amount of administrative authority to carry out the directives handed forth by the council. So to answer kind of that general question, what are we doing here? We're transitioning to a council manager form of government. This is a highly accepted form of government that we're doing, that we're implementing. This is not unheard of. Most jurisdictions operate under these conditions. The power still very much relies within the executive council and the elected officials. So for more information, I can provide the council a brochure if you would like from the ICMA. It's the International City Council Management Association on the council manager form of government with regard to frequently asked questions. This could provide you all with any answers if you get asked questions from residents. I just felt like it was important for me to actually just kind of assure the citizens and the residents of the town. I know this is a work session, but I think it's important for you all to understand. This is about a manager's position. It's not about me. It's not about Brian Henshaw. It's about a manager's position. It's not about the council not doing what they're asked to do. Actually, if anything, we are trying to form us back into a shape where you all actually can focus on community goals and community responses, and then basically turn it over to allow me the ability to help you all achieve those responses, to be more responsive to citizens, hopefully. There are questions that come that are asked that are difficult sometimes that we can't always answer right immediately, but I do try my best to be responsive. So I want to reassure you that that's where we're going. That's where I still see it. That's the page I'm on. I believe we're all on the same page, and hopefully over time we can the citizens and residents will recognize that as well.
I hate to put you on the spot, but Martin, do you have any comments about just how we transition this? I know that's been some of the questions that this thing about is this legal, the fact that we're going against not going against your charter, but as we transform without actually having certain things in our charter, our current charter.
Your charter does provide for a business manager, so that's all the authority that you need to. There's also general code provision that provides for the appointment of a chief executive officer as an optional form of government for any locality. And so the General Assembly recognizes that every locality has to feel its way forward in terms of what is appropriate for it at its current development stage. And for the town of Haymarket, clearly you're relying on professional staff now to tell you what it is that you need more and more, and that frees the council, quite frankly, I would use the word frees you to do more strategic work, to focus on the strategic plans, to think about the vision, to think about where the town is going to. You only have 2-year terms, so you've really got every minute that you spend on focusing on whether the trash is picked up is a minute that you're not spending on the strategic planning and the overall vision that you need to, only you can provide.
Great, thank you. Mr. Hinshaw, anything else with your manager's report there?
I'll just leave it up to you. I don't want to take up any more time, but if anyone have any questions with regard to what else in the manager report, I'll be happy to answer them. While you're all looking through that, I will also say one of the things you'll start noticing, I am trying to provide the council members with kind of a weekly overview of what we are working on. It's just a bulleted out email list. If anyone would ask and want to see it, that's perfectly fine. For the most
I just want to go on the record to say that that's a really good report. I'm going to say it twice. I want to go on the record in saying that's a really good report. Thank you.
I'm just trying to hit the tidbits. I appreciate that, Councilman Morris. I will, it's one of those things that, every now and then we may run into just one of those Fridays, and if I can't get it all together, you'll have it shortly the following week or beginning of the week. But I'll try my best to keep it on.
It just helps us because there are times when I may not know exactly what's happening with the financial meetings that's happening, but you just give a good recap of the week. I think it's such a great tool. And if I can just add too, you just read a little synopsis of the type of government that we're heading into. And I want to say that if I was of the more dictatorship style, I would not want that type of government.
Like, what are you doing? That's right.
Right. I would not want it. If I wanted authority, I would not want that type of government, the direction that we're going into, because I want to be able, if I had that personality or had that drive, and I would want to walk into the office as a council member and boss your own. But the direction that we're going into, it's preventing that. And it's ensuring that this is not a council member-led type of government. It is the council in general, in totality, in addition to the mayor. And what we're doing is just allowing you to do your job. So, I just like the fact that you're taking time to explain it. I think maybe you could try to explain it in a more layman's terms, or the citizens, find a way how they can understand the direction that we're going. But I like it, man. I like it. So.
Well, the only thing I'd also comment to is you got to understand a lot of jurisdictions have been going through these growing pains. It just comes to a point. In the past, there wasn't an ability to hire on professional staff, regardless if they're new to the managerial position or whatever the case would be. It was a lot of reliance, and this town is no different, had to be done. I mean, a lot of the reasons why you are where you are is because council members in the past have stood up and they've done the work. They made sure we had a comprehensive plan because the state said we had to have a comprehensive plan because you didn't have the ability to have a town planner. You didn't have the ability to have a manager. That's how it had to be. But it's just it's more of a sign of times. I said this when I first started here. The Haymarket is at the point where you're part of Northern Virginia. There's going to be certain demands on your services. I'm hoping that while I'm, I would say, blessed enough to be here, that I can help make those services a reality for your residents, and at the same time, given the opportunity to educate why we do this the way we do this, and that it's not about one individual trying to inherit all the authority. It's more about how we collectively all work together.
See, I think it even goes a step further. I think it really ensures the citizens' direction for the town gets carried out. Because when we ran, we spent a lot of time knocking doors. What are your concerns? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the town? And from the multiple doors I knocked on with some, it was pretty clear. And I think this form of government ensures that what the town's citizens want done actually gets carried out. Because it would be easy to come in, get burned with the not minutia, but just the day-to-day workings of making sure this is done and that's done. Where as a citizen, I want to see the Haribo property developed. I want to see the middle of the town developed. I want to see the streetscape finished. I want to see viable activities that don't shut the town down to gridlock. I want to see things done, not that the trash was picked up and I really think it goes back to who's running the town. Is the council running the town, the planning commission, the ARB, or are the citizens' voices being heard? And I think for too long in this town, the citizens have been ignored. And the people that I've run across are very enthusiastic. And, you know, I'm not sure where all the comments are coming from, but at least in my neck of the woods of this little town, I'm hearing, you know, hey, we like the direction it's going. So I think it really goes back, is the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog? And I think that the citizens, when our term's done and we stand before them, either we decide to individually that we want to get reelected or not, we can look those people in the eye and say, hey, we did our dead level best to accomplish what you put us in office in the 2 years that we had to do. And I just feel like we have a set direction we're going, and people need to get on board. And if they don't like where we're going in 2 years, they can get us out and go whatever direction they want to go. So I just want to go on record. I think the citizens' wishes have a far better chance of being carried out in this form of government than the way it's been done in the past. So I will be quiet.
Yeah, good points there, Matt. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is move some things to the consent agenda, unless there would be an objection, but the minutes we would move to consent.
As long as they get fixed.
Yeah, we have some corrections that we called into to Sherry this week. When do you need to? Already been. Gotcha. Okay.
When does she need them, since it's a short week?
Tonight. Yeah. Yeah.
So it'll be tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, the finance committee, let's see, page, just give me a second. You got the special meeting, right? Okay. Which page is the finance? Let's see. It's at the back. 17. Go to, just a call to order, Sherry. You know, yeah, you're the acting treasurer, not a councilwoman. Unless you want to move, I mean. Okay. All right. You got, did I have anything else? No. Nope.
Warren, is there anything that needs to be brought up that we actually need to individually vote on? The ZPA?
Let's keep the ZTA on the action item rather than in consent agenda, because you haven't seen that revised motion yet to initiate the zoning text amendment or reinitiate the zoning text amendment. So let's just keep that on the regular agenda, and if there are no questions, then we just dispose of it smoothly.
Mentioned this earlier. I had discussed it with you, but for the rest of the council's benefit. Our plan was to have the entire police department come in at the beginning of the meeting, if it's acceptable for the order of the agenda, and to take the law enforcement oath of honor. Oh, cool. It's a symbolic move. It's also designed to kind of introduce and roll out these new uniforms we're in. But they're all lined up to come in, and for the sake of time, if you could take them at the beginning of the meeting, that would be appreciated.
That's a great idea.
Perfect. I'll vote on it.
Great idea.
Yeah, right after the citizens' time, we'll earmark that.
Are they coming in the white shirt or the gray shirt?
But I'll wear white just to.
That's a great idea.
Also, our department reports will move to consent. Everybody have a chance to look at the request to council for the use of facility?
Does it move forward without the April 11th date on it?
Right, because that's what the
Okay, that's a motion.
motion stipulates.
Yeah, the motion says as long as it doesn't
Conflict?
conflict with any town events. Yep. Okay. All right, let's go, sort of, I guess, as we follow this, the agenda items, the use of the facilities, and then there's no other further question or comment about that. We're changing those dates or letting them know that they wouldn't be acceptable. The Dominion Virginia Power, the Planning Commission report to the council is enclosed.
Should we keep that separate?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
That's fairly
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want to talk about that tonight, or?
Yeah.
I just want to make a couple comments.
Sure.
I just want to say that under the direction of Bob Weir, he's put a lot of time in this. He did a lot of research, as did some others. And just call your attention to 2 pages, one being on page 45 of the packet. It's actually page 21 on the report. Second to last paragraph from the bottom, Dominion has asserted that the cost of constructing underground transmission lines is prohibitively expensive and that it is several orders of magnitude more costly than the construction of overhead lines. While Dominion's professional staff has stated that historically such underground construction costs upwards of 10 times that of overhead construction, data from similar projects indicates that the true cost is less than twice that of overhead construction. That being said, the Planning Commission has been advised that dedicated fiber optic lines serving the Amazon site have already been buried in the southern I-66 right-of-way, and that on or about October 8, 2014, Dominion filed a request with VDOT to bury the transmission lines on the north side of I-66. So I think this page does a really good job of talking about the validity of going underground. And then really the report can be summed up. I would, ask that you read the report, but kind of the Cliff Note version found on page 54 of the packet, which is 30 of the report. Upon consideration of the potential physical, and aesthetic impacts, the Planning Commission cannot support the proposed distribution of enforcement's preferred preliminary route, alternate preferred preliminary route, public input preferred alternate preliminary route, alternate preliminary route south of I-66, public input alternate preliminary route south of I-66, and the overhead public input alternate preliminary route north of I-66. The Planning Commission does, however, support the public input alternate preliminary route north of I-66, provided that the transmission lines are constructed underground, and suggests in the interest of the public health, safety, convenience, and welfare, the Haymarket Town Council adopt a resolution in support of the said underground route, enumerating the strengths of the proposed route in the text of the resolution and appending this report as an exhibit to the resolution. And you can see where the Commission recommends that this goes. So as part of the Planning Commission, I'd recommend we adopt this, get it to the said entities as quickly as possible. And I really don't know what more can be stated than was fleshed out. It was basically rewritten for like a third time. And I think it's very concise and really gives us the best shot of, doing right by the town and getting it as far away as possible underground. So I want to commend the Planning Commission under the leadership of the chairman. I think they did a notable job on this.
All right. Martin, do we have time to put together a resolution?
Absolutely, Mayor.
I think, we can put together that resolution by Monday.
Okay.
The only caveat that I would put on that is with regard to, there's a couple of references. It's not the main focus of the report by any means, but there's a couple of mentions about electromagnetic radiation being a health risk. There is no scientific data to support that. And in fact, in Hanover County, just this month, a Virginia Circuit Court judge excluded testimony by 2 expert witnesses that were going to be on the basis of electromagnetic radiation being an effect on property values. So there is now case law in Virginia that you can't rely on the supposed health effects of electromagnetic radiation from overhead power lines to affect property, as affecting property values. There's no basis for that. And until somebody comes up with such a basis, I think we should exclude that from our, at least from our resolution, if not from the report.
Okay. 2 people. Joe?
Yeah, Chris. No, let Chris go first.
However, if I can, because the health risk is somewhat inconclusive, we may be able to still to keep in the motion public health.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though, because it's still inconclusive as to the effects of it. So it's not necessarily that we can delete public health in, from one of the reasons why we would support one route, oppose others. But as far as the report is concerned, in relation to that, then, yeah, okay, cool.
Yes, I do. I'm glad we pushed them to go back and take another look at this, because really what comes out of this is undergrounding and reliability. And those are always going to be the key issues relative to the power line project, at least in thwarting an effort coming through town. My question is to both of your comments, Chris and Martin. I understand, and I agree with Chris in that it is inconclusive. We've done some research. I know my wife is a nurse. She's done a lot of research in that area as we work towards working on the easement over at Somerset, and it is still out there. So even though there's case law, there might be some information that's available to us to help support our case. However, looking at what you're saying, Martin, it might make sense then either in the resolution or perhaps some kind of an executive summary, because we're thinking about taking this document and submitting it to the SCC. And so perhaps the best way for us to focus on the key points that come out of this document, the information relative to not orders of magnitude for undergrounding, but a factor or percentage only, and some of the other issues around reliability. So maybe we need to focus on that in our executive summary or some type of a cover letter when we do submit this. And then if you look on page 22 of the document, which is packet page 46, essentially what you have at that last paragraph is an action items list. Basically, what the Planning Commission can and cannot support, and also who the document should go to. So if that's what you were talking about, Matt, I agree with you. I think we need to get this out to all of those folks, and particularly to the delegate Marshall and Canlin as they continue to argue on our behalf. It's important that they have this information.
So we'll have that as an agenda item for the resolution. Okay. Let's see. I think that we pretty much covered it. Then. Sure.
Finish up what's on the consent agenda?
Oh, sure.
I think we didn't finish that.
So, with no objection, we're going to do the request to council, the use of the facility. A separate line item, correct. On the agenda item, we'll have Dominion remain. The fiscal 2015 budget amendments will go consent, not unless I hear any objection otherwise. And, of course, the ZTA, of course, will be on the agenda item. And then for an action item. And then the department reports will move to the consent.
I'm good with that.
Yep. Great, good deal. Correct. Yep. All right. Looks like Vice Mayor.
Is there a closed session?
We can go ahead and list it. I think it'd be prudent to go ahead and list one for Mondays, whether or not we exercise or not. And now for our closed session, I think unless there's any other items that we'd like to add to it, we do need to go in closed session tonight, so I would have Martin take us into. Sure.
Are we going to do council time after closed session?
For council member time?
I don't think we normally do that.
Normally, we would just have that on Monday. Okay.
I'll make it real quick. And probably ask the chief, on Blade Drive there's some construction vans that are sitting there that keep kind of getting closer to the end of the road and kind of makes it hard to get in and out when people are leaving our neighborhood. Do we know who's parking those vehicles there and where those folks are living?
We do. We tried to solve that. As they park there, they're not in violation of anything that's on the books at the moment, unless they get closer than 30 feet to the stop sign.
Right.
We attempted to get voluntary compliance because one of the officers had spoken to them originally when they first moved into the area, and he went back there and spoke to them about this being something we're getting complaints on, because we've received some complaints. And I was kind of hopeful that that would work, but I noticed that they're still there. So there may be a couple of options we could pursue in terms of either banning parking on that street. If VDOT would be inclined to paint a center stripe down it, then it becomes a different issue. If anybody has to cross the line to go around them, which they would have to there because of the pavement width. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I wanted to wait a couple more days just to see if they might make some other arrangements, which is what they were asked to do, but I'm not hopeful on that at this point. So.
Hey, Matt, Chief, are we talking about the vans that are parked there? I think I know who those folks are, too. I believe they moved into one of the homes in our community. So how about we talk about that right afterwards?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's been a couple of hairy misses.
Yeah. Any other council member time that wanted to? Otherwise, we'd put this on our agenda and be able to speak on Monday. Any other ones? No. Oh, yeah.
Two vans.
Okay. Martin, if you would so kindly bring us into closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The form of the motion would be to move that the town council convene in closed session to discuss the following as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1, a personnel matter involving a salary or other compensation of specific employees, specifically in the police department.
So moved. And seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
You're not providing dinner tonight?
All right, you ready, Sherry?
Are we on?
We'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. If we could have Martin bring us back into session here.
The motion to certify is in the form that the council member moves that the council only, in the closed session just concluded, discuss nothing except the matter or matters, one, specifically identified in the motion to convene in closed session, and two, lawfully permitted to be discussed under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion.
All right. Sherry? Do the roll call of certification. Lee?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we direct the town attorney to proceed as directed in closed session.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Any other pending?
I move to adjourn.
There you go. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Joseph.